We started the first fund with only individual investors. One of our first investors are renowned Silicon Valley investors, including Michael Seibel, the CEO of Y-Combinator, and 500 startups, VC funds. They backed us in the early days. I believe they believed in us and our ability to do that well. And I think we had a vision from day one.
Kenza, why do you do what you do?
Wow, great question. Thank you for to start out like this. So it comes back to my story, and to how I uncovered my mission, because I don't think this is a job for me. It's really a life mission, and I was lucky enough to find it early and to dedicate my time and my professional life to it from an early day. So I've been working on the tech and VC ecosystem for the past 10 years. I'm a pioneer ecosystem builder and also pioneer fund manager in Africa that started out the first fund in 2018 as an Africa-focused fund called Outlierz Ventures. But it comes back to the story of how it started and the frustration and the opportunity that I saw to do that. So my background is in investment and technology. I'm a computer science engineer, started my career in machine learning in France, then did a master's in business in Singapore and came back to Africa to work in private equity. So this is where I switched to investment. But my true passion has always been tech innovation and entrepreneurship. So I decided I accepted an offer to work for an advisory firm in San Francisco, Silicon Valley, to help startups from emerging markets to scale to the US. And this was back in 2012. And at that time, it was booming in Silicon Valley, in San Francisco, and also around the world. And this is how I saw what was happening in terms of startup revolution in some of the countries and markets that I didn't even think of, like Lithuania at the time, in Eastern Europe, and then also Latin America, like Brazil, Mexico, and other markets. And I understood the power that technology had on changing societies and economies. And I was both inspired by what I saw in San Francisco and Silicon Valley and in other ecosystems that were being built, and also frustrated by what was there at the time in Africa, because we didn't have any startup ecosystem. And the mindset that I felt and discovered in San Francisco, that everything is possible and smart people go out and build products and solutions to solve big problems, or work for this great company that is doing something meaningful, was not an option back home. And I'm from Morocco, and I saw my friends coming back home and just being frustrated with the opportunities they had. And I thought, it's too bad, but like, talent is evenly distributed, but opportunities and capital is not. So I saw that as an opportunity, and I thought, we have talent back home. They just don't have the right environment. And they haven't seen that happen next to them to think it's possible. So I really came back home with this idea of this mission of like building the ecosystem and really enabling founders to use technology as a tool to change the way things are and to solve problems. Because we do have a lot of problems and challenges in Africa, in the economy, in different sectors. And when you look at them from an opportunity perspective, then this is how it could be turned into big companies that can become category leaders and next success stories.
Before we get into Outlierz, I just want to know, what is the mentality of individuals in Silicon Valley that had such a profound impact on you? What were they thinking? What was that environment like?
I think something that I've learned in San Francisco is that, as I said, everything is possible. When you believe and when you have a vision and you can execute on it, it can become a reality. But first you need to believe. You need to believe in yourself, and you need to believe that you can do it. And you have to surround yourself with the right people that can empower you and help you to achieve this mission, this vision. It can be your team, talent, but also your mentors and advisors, because it's super important. And everything starts with what you have in the mind, like with your mindset. So you have to set up the right mindset, because the entrepreneur journey is tough. It's very hard. So you really need to make sure that first you find something that you are passionate enough about to pursue, because it's gonna get hard and difficult. So you need to make sure that your why is big enough. So starting from there, and then you have to surround yourself with the right people that will pull you up, and then the right team and talents that can help you build what you're building. But of course, a lot of different things, in terms of market, looking at the market, the business model, etc. But it starts with that, and this is something that I learned in there. And then also this mentality of start small and do it well, and do it really well, and do it right, and then scale. Which even as a fund manager, I applied in starting the fund. And we started with a very small fund that we deployed, but with high quality. And quality is more important than quantity, in my opinion. So this is what we did. And we also built the fund as entrepreneurs to back the best founders out in the continent and show it's possible. And just show that we have amazing founders that can start small and build something great. And this is why we call, like, the fund is called Outlierz Ventures, because we back the outliers of the continent.
Okay, there's something there that I want to unpack. So what is it that African entrepreneurs and founders are lacking besides the obvious? So you mentioned finding your why. You mentioned having this mentality. You mentioned surrounding yourself with mentors. You mentioned taking opportunities. What else are they lacking besides the resources, in your opinion?
Yeah, or maybe what makes it difficult to build a company from Africa compared to, it's hard anywhere, but this is for sure. I think in Africa you have very real challenges that founders can solve, and this is something, a strength that we have here. We're not, building companies, or at least we are not backing companies that are building the next Snapchat for dogs. We're backing founders that are solving real problems. So this is something to the advantage of African founders. But also, we're coming from, the ecosystem is still maturing. It has developed a lot in the past few years, past 5, 6, 7 years. But there's still a lot of work to do. And Africa is a fragmented market, 55 countries, with different regulations, and it's harder for a founder in Africa to build a company that can be big enough, because he has to scale across different markets in order for the opportunity to be interesting and valuable. So there is just a bit more complexity to solving problems and building companies from Africa, but it's also a barrier to entry for the players. So this is why it's a great acquisition opportunity to buy and acquire a player that has been able to acquire a big market across different countries. So you can see it as challenge, but also as a great advantage as well. So I would say the environment is not as helpful as somewhere else. It's like there is capital available, and there is more and more capital available, but there is less capital at maybe later stage. There is A, B plus, and this is a challenge. But good founders, they always find a way, and they build it and they come. So this is the mentality, and this is how we think.
And Outlierz, could you walk us through your portfolio companies? What made you decide on those specific companies in your portfolio?
Yeah, sure. I'll give you some examples. So with Fund 1, we started investing in 2018. We backed 17 companies out of 4 markets. So Morocco, Egypt, Nigeria, Kenya. Those are our target markets. With Fund 2, we're going to start now also investing in Francophone Africa. So we're looking at Tunisia, Senegal, Cote d'Ivoire, among others. And so we invested in some companies so most of them can fall in 3 main verticals. So fintech, logistics, supply chain, and health. And we are mainly B2B and B2B2C driven in terms of thesis. And we invest in companies that are using technology to transform very traditional industries that are fragmented, that are informal, and that need automation, and where there is a lack of financial inclusion. So we believe technology is a very powerful layer, like infrastructure layer, to aggregate those very fragmented markets and to formalize them, and to include the population and the SMEs into the financial system. So we are mainly interested and excited about infrastructure businesses that are transforming the way the industry works, making it more efficient and more transparent. So example of companies that we've backed that have done really well. So we are early investors in Wasoko, B2B supply chain for FMCG small retailers, that started out of Kenya and is now active in 6 markets across East Africa and West Francophone Africa. So what they do, they basically enable small FMCG retailers like small shops to order their goods on an app. They aggregate all the fast consumer goods, from the big manufacturers like Procter & Gamble, Unilever, and so on. And then they buy in bulk and deliver in 24 hours to those retailers. So they are transforming the way the value
Informal
chain is.
retailers.
Informal retailers, yes, because more than 80% of the volume of goods sold in Africa is not sold via supermarkets. It's sold via those small informal retailers, but the supply chain to get to them is very, very fragmented and not efficient. So this is a way to transform the supply chain, and they are now have built this network of informal retailers that they can now monetize and do more things with. So they have introduced white label products with much higher margins directly, so direct distribution to this huge network, and also embedded finance, so credit terms for those retailers. So this is an example of a company that we really liked and that the model worked really well. The founder is top level, and they've built a great management leadership team, and they've been able to scale, which is very rare in Africa, and raised one of the largest Series B a couple years ago of 125 million with funds like investors like Tiger Global and so on. And the other one that is very similar but in another market is MaxAB. So MaxAB, very similar model, but another market that has the same market dynamic and a very deep market. Founders are top level with experience as ex-GM of Kareem and others, and RMX. And so when we saw them, then we had invested in Wasoko before. This is a model that works in a deep market with a great team. So we backed them earlier, and they also are doing really well and have grown into one of the biggest companies in Egypt.
So you've told me about 2 success stories. Tell me about a deal that did not go according to plan, if any, in your portfolio.
Of course they are. It's a healthy metric to have some that don't go well, but luckily most of our companies are still doing well and growing. Some have done really, really well. Some are making their way to it, and some have not done well and have pivoted many times and trying to find the real product market fit. But sometimes, most of the time, it would come from the quality of founders. So we've learned our lessons and we've learned our way. And one of the most important things we look at is the founders, but not only their experience. And yes, we love founders that are coming from a specific industry, that understand the problem they're solving, and that go out there and solve this problem. This is the best. But we also look at ethics and values. And this is super important. And I'm not sure all investors are looking at that way, but it's important to us to back founders that are aligned in terms of mission, vision, and values, because this is, when it's going, when it's becoming hard, this is what determines how they will react to it. And also it determines the driver that is driving them to build this company. Is it fame and fundraising and PR, or is it building a real business? So it's super important for us to partner with founders that are building a real business for the right reasons.
And all of this is in your investment thesis. Do you have a framework for finding out if that founder is investable?
Yeah, but some of the things are not quantifiable. They're qualitative things that you build. It's called intuition, data-driven intuition. So you collect data, but the more you talk to founders, the more you develop your instinct and your ability to read people. And VC is a people's business. We invest, so yes, we're in the financial industry, but investing at early stage involves also a lot of people skills.
Okay. And in terms of your fund, where and how do you source your money for your fund?
Well, we raise funding. So we raise funding from, for this fund, Fund 2, from institutional investors that are regional, African, but also European, GCC, and, US. So it could be funds of funds or institutional funds, pension fund. Yeah, they need to have a mandate for Africa and VC, which is not always the case and not always easy. So, it takes a lot of time to build a reputation, to build a track record, and to give confidence to investors that you know what you're doing and that you are there to back the best companies and produce high return, but also a great impact on the continent.
So starting off, how did you get to this point at the beginning phase? How did you get your first,
Yeah, we started the first fund with only individual investors and some VC funds that backed us. So one of our first investors, are renowned Silicon Valley investors, including Michael Seibel, the CEO of Y-Combinator, and 500 Startups VC fund. They backed us in the early days because they were working with us, or they saw the work that we were doing on the ecosystem of connecting founders to each other, but to other and to investors. So we were building the ecosystem, the community of tech founders. And the next step for us was to build a fund. They decided to back us because they believed in, I believe they believed in us and our ability to do that well. And I think we had a vision from day one. So this is how we raised our first fund, very small fund that we deployed across those 4 markets with 17 companies, have built great track record with some of the best companies in Africa, and now institutionalizing the firm. And because we're not building a fund, we're building a firm. We want to build a brand, and we want to.
Could you expand on that? What's the difference between building the fund and the firm?
Yeah, so building a fund is like you're focusing on just one fund, and you don't have a strategy or a vision, a long-term vision of building multiple funds that will serve the same purpose, or have a long-lasting impact on the ecosystem, and being the right team with the right senior level leadership and partners to take over the firm on the long term. So this is what we are in process of doing, and our vision is really to build one of the leading seed firm for Africa that can be the go-to VC fund for founders at seed, both in North and Sub-Saharan Africa.
Okay, and what needs to happen for you to get there? Is it increased funding?
Look, we are executing on our vision, and we're going step by step and try to do what we do well. And we focus on founders, and we really work with founders, provide them value, because if it's not about only the money, it's not only about the capital, it's how you work with them, how you create value. And it's the reputation that you build with founders in the ecosystem. And we're being very, grateful and happy to hear from great feedback from our founders, and get referral from them to other great founders that they know, and that they highly recommend us as their early stage investor. So I think this is the best recognition, and I think we're excited about working with founders, and we love to do that. So when you do something with passion and genuinely, I think it shows, and I think founders really appreciate that. I think we help them a lot on their go-to-market strategy, to connect with the right, early clients, partners. We open doors to the market. We take our phone and book meets, help them get meetings with the right decision makers. Sometimes even we go with them, So it's about being hands-on at the seed stage and helping them get to Series A. And then we help them, connect with later stage investors to raise the next round of funding for them.
And for startup founders looking for funding and coming to Outlierz, what are some things that you could advise them, before actually applying to one of your funds?
Yeah, so our thesis is pretty clear and straightforward. We back founders that are using technology to transform very traditional industries in key sectors. We're mainly B2B and B2B2C driven. And we look for founders that are solving big problems and real problems. So not nice to have. And we look for founders that have a vision, that are committed to what they're doing and doing it for the right reason. Of course, in a big enough market with the right value proposition and the right business model and unit economics.
And of course, the other things like making sure they have a clean data room, all the track record
For sure.
in place to actually make it past your first round.
Definitely.
Got you. Cool. And in terms of AfricArena, how impactful have they been to you in your journey and Outlierz?
It's great to have platforms that highlight founders and enable them to connect with more investors from across the continent. I think AfricArena is doing a great job in this, and bringing together founders, but also investors and sometimes also LPs. So it's a great way to help people connect and help them, give them a platform to showcase their company and then opportunities to everyone.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for
Sure.
making the impact that you are making in Africa. And I hope that you find more of these unicorns wherever you look. And the startup founders will come to you. So yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.